connect. Hold on. All right. Well, I'm going to do an 8-minute countdown. All right.
Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll see what happens. We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I am a dissident.
Don't move. Vote.
I'm saying no. Why you hear Palantir, 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 Palantir? It's not going to be stopped.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list.
Turns off.
I am not a church boy.
Turns off.
They're full-on vampires.
They hate our beef. They hate our beef. They hate our beef because our beef is beautiful and theirs is weak.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all. I guess Russ didn't make it back for the 8-minute countdown here, but thank you very much for being here. My name is Keaton Weiss. Russell Dobular is sitting in the chair as we speak. And apologies once again. We had the exact same problem with Rumble streaming that we did last time. So we are on the new YouTube link. I apologize for that. We will get this straightened out by the next show. I assumed it was a one-off. I assumed it was one of those turn off, turn back on things. Turned out I had to turn off and turn back on again. I think the connection is timing out because I make these links hours in advance so we can get our newsletters done, so we can be responsible. And I think the connection to YouTube is just timing out on Rumble Studio because when I reset it, it works. But I did reset it on the last show, so who the hell knows? Might be. It's got to be something on their end. We know for sure it's something on their end. We'll get to the bottom of it. So yeah, we just got a new point of contact at Rumble, so things are a little bit in flux now, but we will get it straightened out by Thursday, but everything else should work. Callers, you do not need a new call-in link because we are going to a patron post game today. So the final two segments of today's show will be on the post game show for members only. So the link to the members only stream is still the same link as in the newsletter. The only link that changed was the YouTube link from the newsletter. So Jake is going to send out a new YouTube link so that everybody has the right YouTube link. But other than that, we're good to go. And I should say, welcome to the New York Knickidence podcast today, since we are all New York Knicks fans around here today. Got my hat. I've had this New York Knicks hat for about 12 years, and I could never wear it proudly. Not that I'm a fan, but still, the Knicks, I mean, there was stigma to being a Knicks fan because they've been so lousy for so long, but they are Eastern Conference champions now. Oddly enough, and we did not plan it this way, I told Russ this before we went on the air, they defeated, in 4 games, of course, the Cleveland Cavaliers. And Russ has his Cavaliers shirt on, not the Cleveland Cavaliers, but the Hong Kong Cavaliers. From the
Hong Kong Cavaliers. Yeah,
yes.
they're better.
They're better.
They're the better known Cavaliers, actually.
Yes, yes.
Buckaroo Banzai and the Hong Kong Cavaliers.
The proper Cavaliers. That's right. The proper Cavaliers.
They haven't toured since this was their last tour, '84. I was at it.
Oh, that was that was the last one, huh?
That was the last tour from the Buckaroo Banzai Hong Kong Cavaliers, man. Played all their hits. And then nobody knows what happened, man. Supposedly, the lead singer, he was a brilliant scientist. He was working on an interdimensional transport thing, and poof, they disappeared.
Disappeared out of thin air. All right, well, we got some stories to get to today, of course. And like I said, last 2 segments of today's show will be for members only, and then we are doing a Q&A after the show. Patreon.com/DoDissidents. We do this once a month for members because you guys are the backbone of the show. So Patreon.com/DoDissidents. Just check if you sign up, the last major newsletter drop will have the link to the patron stream and the call-in link. Okay.
You know, I don't follow sports. Is Wilt Chamberlain still starting center over there?
Yeah, Wilt Chamberlain blew it for the Cleveland Cavaliers last night. That's what he is. You know, he's too old. He's been rich for too long. He's been phoning it in.
He's been rich for too long. You know, he doesn't have the eye of the tiger anymore.
That's right. Okay. Without further ado, why don't we get started with some new Thomas Massie developments here. That's all anybody cares about now is Thomas Massie. He's the new guy. He's the it guy.
Or as he's known around Washington, Classy Tom Massie. Classy Tom Massie went on Meet the Press, and he talked about how AI tricked the boomers. It's not me saying it. It's not me saying it, okay? Tom Massie said it.
Artificial intelligence to create a video, lifelike video, that showed me checking into a hotel room with AOC and Ilhan Omar and holding hands with them. It was actually very effective on the boomers. But here's the thing, Kristen, that's only going to work for a little bit longer. The boomers are going to, leave this country to the Gen X and the Gen Z and the Gen Y and the millennials. And those folks are the ones that I won overwhelmingly. That makes me really hopeful for this country. They don't get fooled by artificial intelligence, and they check the news. They get news sources like from podcasts and other sources. So they won this race by fooling my voters and expanding the base of people who vote to the uninformed voters.
All right. So in another place, he actually, it's funny because this is like a small account of somebody who looks like they're in the boomer category. And Massie actually had a back and forth with this Cindy person. He said, the president's big, beautiful bill, the Iran war, and Republican spending bills will create a $2 trillion budget deficit in 2026. Financing just the new debt costs more than all federal road and bridge projects, and we will be making those new interest payments each year forever. So Cindy here says, just stop. We defeated you. And this precipitated quite a pile-on. Massie responded to her, surprisingly, I'll be exposing the swamp for 7 more months before you get to unwrap your present from the globalist billionaires. And somebody posted a picture of her. We? Who? You and the clowns that live in your head? Good always wins in the end. P.S. You were great in Tales from the Crypt. And really to the point, Mr. Fantastic here. We just cannot get a good Fantastic Four movie. It's very sad. What the fuck is wrong with your generation? Seriously, the damn boob tube isn't the first and last word. For fuck's sake, think for yourself for once. Think about your grandkids. Your bio is ironically regarded, and by that, he means educate yourself or lose your freedom to make your own choices, presumably referring to the fact that AIPAC is not making any secret of their influence on this election. Congressman Massie's defeat on Tuesday sets a clear precedent. Elected officials are free to disagree with us, but only briefly. Only brief. They're not doing a lot to argue that they were not responsible, bragging about it, actually. Now, if you look at the basic premise here, this is what I don't understand, man. Every demographic group voted for Massie in that election, except one, 65 and over. Every age demographic favored incumbent Thomas Massie, except voters aged 65 and older. In the big data poll for Kentucky's 4th congressional district, seniors were the only group, the only one, to back challenger Ed Gallrein over Massie, 65 to 35. That is what I don't understand about, based boomers. If you're watching our show and you're a boomer, I'm assuming you're a based boomer. I think me and Keaton know a thing or two about being a member of a group that overall has an absolutely repulsive worldview that you're in absolute opposition to and that you denounce. Say you were a member of a group that supports a genocidal apartheid state, upward of 80% of that group. I don't know. I don't understand why you would get defensive when people say, wow, this group of people supports horrible things. Like if you're not one of those, say, hey, yeah, that's horrible, but I'm not one of them. But I don't see how you could say, well, the cohort does not have horrible opinions. I mean, it again and again and again and again. I'm just going to ask on the numbers. Right? Okay, let me apply it to my own group. If you removed American Jews from America, if they just, went to Israel, right? They all went to Israel. Would Israel have the influence on our politics that it has? You would say no, right? You would agree with that, right? If you removed boomers from the voting rolls, if you just made it illegal for people over 65 to vote, you would agree that the shift towards populist economic policies would be drastic and probably immediate, right? Like mathematically, you cannot argue with that, right? That is just the math. So I would say if you're a based boomer, you should follow me and Keaton's example and speak out against the group that you're a member of. That's probably the best way to demonstrate not all so-and-sos by not being a narcissistic dick every time people point out obvious math, right? As Thomas Massie did right here. So he went on in this interview to actually call out Melania Trump by way of talking about the Epstein files.
Expect you to name more names in the coming weeks and months?
Yes. Todd Blanche is violating the law. There's still millions of files they haven't released. We know from talking to the victims' lawyers that their own 302 forms haven't been released. We know that files have been over-redacted. I have released at least 3 names of billionaires who are implicated in this. I don't think it's possible to get to convictions with Todd Blanche at the top and with the FBI director, Kash Patel, at the top, because they've effectively both perjured themselves by saying that there's nobody else in the files. Even Melania doesn't believe that. The First Lady knows that Jeffrey Epstein didn't act alone. And here's the great thing, Kristen. Whether I'm in Congress or not, the Epstein Files Transparency Act is a law, and it goes on for years. So if we can't get this Attorney General and this FBI director to do the right thing, the next ones who take those seats are obligated by law to release the files that these individuals are not releasing now.
Yeah, actually, Status Quo had a report about this week. Yet another close associate of Melania's from her modeling alleged sex work days came out and said that Epstein introduced her to Donald Trump. So you have multiple people who were there at the time saying this now. A lot of allegedly she's lying when she goes up at the White House and claims to not know anything about it. Talk about methinks thou dost protest too much. When you go and you hold a press conference about something like no one was really pressing you on like that, didn't really do anything to convince people she was not guilty.
It's like going out there. I did not leave the sink running by accident when I locked my apartment up for the last time. I did not do that. So
yes, exactly. It was pretty.
Stop saying that.
It was pretty ridiculous. Thomas Massie, this whole thing, the scorched earth rampage he's been on since that election, definitely calls to mind a famous line from the very first Star Wars movie. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Thomas Massie with nothing to lose is their worst nightmare. So, former rape victim turned professional digital streetwalker Juanita Broderick here. She just whatever the call is that she's going to get paid for, she pushes that talking point on any given day. Massie is so full of shit. If he had names, he would have already announced them. Thomas Massie is a total fraud. Now, this is how you can see how coordinated this is, because that's the talking point when he mentions the list now. That's the talking point. What's he waiting for? It's been 17 years. Do it already. Lying MF, like they got a talking point and they get paid to repeat the talking point. But hey, this is something that on the one hand is very exciting. On the other hand, makes you kind of fear for Thomas Massie's safety. I filed with FEC for the 2028 House race. This allows me to raise funds to continue my political operations, supporting my position as a current office holder and as a potential candidate for federal office. I haven't made a final decision about which office to seek if I run, kind of slyly floating the possibility that you might indeed see a Thomas Massie for president campaign. Babylon BB, it's a pretty funny outlet, put this out. Netanyahu announces that he didn't kill Thomas Massie. May God bless and protect Thomas Massie is their caption. So yeah, man, it looks like Massie has just decided, nah, I'm not going away. I'm not going away. I'm not going gently into that good night. You want to come for me? I'm coming for you. Now, frankly, given certain realities around Charlie Kirk, yeah, in all seriousness, I think you got to worry for Thomas Massie, because if there's one thing we saw from the Charlie Kirk assassination, they cannot have someone they don't own with that kind of influence and popularity running around working against their interests. Now, do they decide it would just be too damn obvious? Because frankly, nobody saw that coming with Charlie Kirk. Like, nobody was walking around saying, oh man, Charlie Kirk's pissing off the Israelis, they're going to whack him. With Thomas Massie, that's the first place anybody's going to look. So it would be a little harder for them to commit a murder, frankly, and cover it up in such glaringly incompetent fashion as they have with Kirk, leading anyone with half a brain to say there's absolutely no way that the official story is the story. Wouldn't be so easy to do that with Thomas Massie. But hey, man, I said this from jump. It would be a lot easier for these populist right figures to mount a successful independent run, I think, than the left. I think they would have a much better chance of pulling it off. Not that it would be a good chance, but a Thomas Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene ticket, I could see them making that work a lot sooner than I could see any equivalent like left campaign working.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would likely try and run in the Republican Party. I think the bet that he is making at this point is that, you know, by the time the next elections come around, 2028, this version of the Republican Party is going to be so toxic that people are going to have buyer's remorse about the Ed Gallrein types and Donald Trump himself, quite frankly. I mean, as Massie is filing paperwork to run in 2028, and he did not specify for which office he is going to seek, you know, which of course is a de facto tease that he's considering running for president. But as he's made these announcements, it was reported in the Daily Mail that, of course, J.D. Vance is considering not running for the presidency in 2028. So you can see the writing on the wall in that sense. That is at least the bet that he is making. He is making a bet that in a couple years, this brand incarnation of the GOP is going to be so unpopular that there's going to be a lane for him. I don't think he'll run outside the party. I just don't see there being the infrastructure for that, even amongst these populist right figures. I think if anything, they will try and do some sort of insurgent campaign where they're going to come up against the same shit that Massie came up against this time, that Bernie came up against in 2016. I mean, look at how scorched earth they've gone against a guy like Tucker Carlson already. There's rumors he's going to run. Now, he's not made any gestures towards that, but he is definitely a name who would make a big splash and a big impact immediately upon jumping in. They've already gone scorched earth against him. And so it's going to be the same dynamic where you're just going to have tons of money and tons of propaganda against whoever tries to, do a hostile takeover of the GOP, just as we experienced on the Democratic side in the Bernie Sanders campaigns. But I think that's kind of the bet that Massie is making here. And It's probably a pretty good bet, actually, because as you said, I think any shenanigans will be immediately perceived as such, right? Because we see this coming a mile away. So, I think it's good that he is, insisting that he stay in the game, and I think he sees a lane for himself in 2 years, and he's probably right.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is, this version of the Republican Party is the one that just voted him out, right?
Of course. So he's hoping it'll get even worse. Yeah.
Look what they were able to do. Look
Yeah.
what they were able to do to him. So, we'll see. He could be right, but things are pretty bad now.
Yes, of course.
And they were able to swing it like that.
Of course.
So there's no guarantee that an insurgent campaign within the Republican Party would be successful at this point.
No, I mean, not only is there no guarantee, it's an unlikelihood at any
It's
point.
unlikely.
Because you're dealing with the base, right? These primary campaigns are voted upon by the base. The base are the most diehard partisans, who are the most susceptible to brainwashing. That's why they're diehard partisans, right? So, even in a situation like the one we just had, it was very easy to get, 54% of the voters to pick a guy who they had never heard of and whose policies they did not agree with on the key issues that he was running on. What do you think? Kentucky really doesn't want the Epstein files out? Of course they do.
That's what I'm saying.
They did it because Daddy said. So, yeah, it's always an unlikely.
Like, if you could get them to go along with that and the Iran war, what can you not get them to go along with?
Yeah, no. Like when I say you have a good chance, I'm talking about like in baseball terms.
With Republicans,
like
it's still 80% of people who support invading Iran. These fucking these people can't afford to fill their fucking gas tanks, and they're still. We had to do it 47 years humiliation.
Yeah. When I say a good chance, I'm talking about like the way a baseball player has a good chance of getting a hit. Like the best baseball players get a hit 3 out of 10 times.
1 out of 3, right?
So like a good chance means 28 to 30% chance that you can make something happen, and that's about what it is. Because even if Vance is looking like his candidacy is DOA, which I think it is. Yeah. They got Rubio there, who is formidable because he's going to pull in a lot of the Latino diaspora lunatics. And so that makes him formidable even as the Trump brand tank. So I wouldn't say it's a likelihood, but I would say, he sees the direction that things are going in and is hoping that there will be a lane wider for him next cycle. That's his guess. All right. You want to take some super chats?
Sure.
All right. I got to make sure I got my videos in here. Actually, I don't have videos for this.
You got baby. You got baby. Vianticus Prime, everything's a scam, everything's a lie, everything's hypocrisy. Want to see my dick? No, he didn't write that. That's so you don't comply. He's gonna want his money back now. I besmirched him. Oh, George, it's weird when you wind up reading our rants and chats twice. Hopefully funny the first time, almost macabre the second. I wonder if that's always the case. Or can they become funnier? It can always become funnier, man. It can always become funnier. Angry Prole, DD, you're wrong about Massie. He's a Freemason who drinks blood in the basement of Trinity Church. Nick Cage knew. Nick Cage revealed him. Hang on. Now I got to wait for the... Oh, you can start it again. All right. The Freemason who indirectly serves Israel as he takes money from Club for Growth. Libertarians are scum who don't oppose capitalism. You haven't done your homework. Yeah, I think there's a word for this. Where's my dictionary? It's in the other room. Oh, nuance. Oh, right. I think the word that I'm looking for is nuance. It's very rare in life that things are entirely one way or entirely another way. Thomas Massie's politics are not ours. Absolutely. Like I wouldn't want Massie to be president. I would take Massie for president over Kamala Harris for president. And that's really the context that we're talking about. Thomas Massie could very easily have just played the image of being this libertarian, which appeals to a lot of the Republican base, and not giving himself these kinds of headaches. So I'm sorry to say, oh, he's a free man. It's so off point and beside the point and ridiculous in the context that we're discussing this. Oh yeah, no, this was all part of the plan for him to make himself the kind of very powerful enemies who might make sure that, you know, you have a little problem with your brakes one day driving to the Aldi's, right? Yeah, no, this was great for him. This was a great move. And some of the things you're saying could also be true. I don't think in the way that you're framing it. But of course, like, we're not libertarians. If we were libertarians, we'd be making a lot more money because we would be appealing to an audience that honestly is much better represented online than the audience that we do speak to, which are people who like nuance mostly. Right. People who like nuance. That's a much smaller group. Hang on, that's this one up here. Wumber. Israel wants the U.S. and Iran to be failed states. Yes, I've seen that theory, and I agree with it. Dimitri Mugianis. I'm convinced we all need to go. I will set an example of revolutionary self-deletion before my 61st birthday in August, boomers. Follow me. That would be like Logan's Run, only instead of when you're 30, you have to die. When you're 65, you have to die. That would actually be a good sketch.
Yeah, that would be funny.
65. No, man, look, we want the based ones to stick around. I'm just saying, like, hey, I want me and all the Jewish Voice for Peace kind of people and the Rabbi Weiss people to stick around. I'd be very happy to see the 80% that support the apartheid genocide state to leave the country, get out of the way. So why would you not feel that way if you're a member of that group? Like, yeah. Don't you feel like they're making you look bad? That's another thing. That's another thing, man. Like, I always used to say this. See, you have to be Jewish to be able to see this, but when I see a Jew leave a fucking bad tip, I'm like, oh, now I got to carry that, man. Mm-hmm. Now I got to carry that. Now that fucking person's that you did that to is going to be like, fuck Jews. They don't tip, right? Like me, who tips like 25%. Now I'm stuck with that image because of you. Now I got to make up for it. Now I got to tip 30%.
And now he's got to tip more. That's what really makes him upset. Yeah. That's the really terrible thing.
Now I got to tip. God damn it! I got to tip more because of your cheap ass.
Now he's got to tip more. That's right.
Yeah, man. Like, I don't understand why your reaction would be to defend a cohort that doesn't share your politics that makes you look bad.
No, I mean, they should just, stop participating. If they no longer participated, which they shouldn't anyway. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if you're, I wouldn't go as far as to say 65. If you're 80, you really shouldn't be involving yourself in decisions that are not really going to concern you, because you're not really going to have to live with the consequences of how you vote or, how you organize at that point. Like, you may want to just have a little bit of like humility. Like, when I'm of a certain age, I'll probably just say, all right, this is up to the young people to figure out the world they want to live in. And if enough older people had made that calculation, then the world would be a much better place. I think most of the people in this audience probably agree with that, according to the numbers. Seems very likely. Okay. All right. We got 1,430 in the YouTube chat. We got 387 in the Rumble chat over here. Thanks, everybody, very much for being here today. Once again, we do have our post-game final segments of the show will be for members only. If you are a Rumble Premium member, you will get the post-game as well. So Rumble Premium members and callers and patrons, I should say, have access to the post game today. Patrons through the members only link that was in your email, and Rumble Premium members, just stay where you are on this Rumble stream. You will this will become a members only stream before the end of the show. All right.
I'm just, before we leave this, I'm just going to point this out. So we got Kevin Street here says boomers are not monolithic, which we agree with, just like Jews aren't, but the vast majority of them support an apartheid genocide state. Over 80%, right? So it's not all of them, it's not us, but a majority does, right? So saying they're not monolithic is irrelevant to what we're
Yeah, of
saying.
course they're not
Then
monolith.
saying Republicans voted out Massie. Yeah, you're right. So how did boomers vote in Hillary versus Bernie? What was the
Right.
demographic that supported Hillary? It was boomers. So no, it's not a Republican thing.
No. And yeah, Massie won 55 and under. Won
Right.
55 and under.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's move right on along here to segment number 2. All right. So this is kind of a flip side of the Hassan Piker, Medea Benjamin subpoena, because it is not just the left that is under the microscope. It is the quote-unquote dissident right as well. Gabriel Cuccia tweets out, you may be wondering 2 things. What happened to Trump and who is he listening to? Why does it feel like the internet isn't real and engagement is fluctuating based on particular topics lately? I think I can help answer both questions. There is a company called Vine and Fig Tree. Vine and Fig Tree, referred to as VFT, is a pro-Israel organization with ties to the administration. Earlier this year, VFT was at the White House meeting with Sebastian Gorka. Shortly after that White House meeting, I was contacted through a third party and asked to script write for VFT. The individual who contacted me is publicly very Christian and widely perceived as America First. I was told the script would be used to create an AI-generated video on behalf of the White House, specifically for NSC and Sebastian Gorka. They told me, yeah, we have to do this on behalf of them, the administration, because they don't want it to look like it's actually coming from the White House. You know what I mean? I mean, it worked out for them. And Nick Shirley, look at that. Nick Shirley getting another name drop. I was then given, those Somali daycare fraudsters are looking like pretty small time crooks nowadays, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Still outraged about that? Still think that's the biggest problem this country faces is a couple daycare centers getting money that they shouldn't get, allegedly. We don't even know if that's necessarily true. I was then given a Dropbox link containing research, polling data, internal comments, and strategy material compiled by VFT and the third party involved. Inside the Dropbox were 7 folders. Through those documents, I learned more about what this organization actually does. Their reports monitor major conservative and dissident right accounts and frequently frame those accounts as vulnerable to or participating in foreign influence operations. The reports include information regarding Nick Fuentes, the Hodge twins, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Jackson Hinkle, Ian Carroll, and Mario Nawfal, just to name a few. Everybody calls Jackson Hinkle right wing. He's literally a member of a communist party, but whatever.
Yeah,
they also collected polling and response data surrounding Joe Kent's resignation from the administration. In another report, they argue that distrust surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination was mostly due to Americans falling for Russian, Iranian, and Pakistani propaganda networks. Sounds a lot like Russiagate. Sounds a lot like what the liberals were saying back in 2016, right? In 2017, that people were getting sucked into the Trump campaign due to foreign influence propaganda. In that same Charlie Kirk report, they state this represents an urgent national security threat and demands a whole of government response on par with cyber attacks or terrorism. Internal comments attached to these reports are what stood out most. They talk about going after Fuentes, stating undermining his Christian identity is probably a good idea. Now, understand, we're going to cover this in one of the patron-only segments, which will be clipped for YouTube in the coming days. Domestic terrorism is not a legal charge. That is a justification to scrutinize a person, to try and find something to either charge them with or penalize them for, right? That is a pretext
go fishing
for sticking a microscope up your ass, right? They contemplate getting, quote unquote, Matt Walsh or Michael Knowles, the Daily Wire guys, to publish on behalf of VFT. They suggest collaborating with NCRI, founded by Joel Finkelstein, a multi-million-dollar organization that tracks hate speech on social media. It's just unbelievable to see all this happening under the administration that rode a wave of anti-woke culture war activism into power. to now be using the exact same language that the wokesters use. I mean, they're not even like disguising it. It's just so completely shameless against their own people, not just against the left, against the very culture warriors who, bemoaned hate speech as a concept, including Matt Walsh, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Another internal comment. Now, this says they were considering reaching out to them. We don't know that they have at this point. Another internal comment weighs in on how they will advise politicians based on their data, which also compiles info surrounding J.D. Vance's 2028 run. There is definitely a way to use this in our favor. Tell politicians that there are two wings of the party. They don't overlap. The majority lies here, and this is where you should be if you want to get reelected. The documents also discuss burner profiles, burner ad accounts, AI-generated interview-style videos, audience personas, troll content briefs, engagement testing, and ideological audience segmentation. If you're wondering whether the White House is actually listening to VFT, it's worth reviewing the White House's latest 16-page counterterrorism strategy touted by Gorka. More to follow. So here's an executive summary. They go on and they list some screenshots in their Twitter thread. The survey of the dissident right reveals a fractured movement, weak leadership consolidation, and widespread skepticism of Israel that cuts across religious identity and influencer trust. Important findings include, so they highlighted a few things. 68% of respondents believe America First and MAGA now mean different things. Despite J.D. Vance cultivating a broad tent coalition, he's rejected by large parts of the coalition. Tucker Carlson is perceived as more honest than Nick Fuentes, who is perceived as more honest than Candace Owens. Tucker is seen as an honest critic of foreign policy by 47% of respondents. Supporting Christian values playing a larger role in public life is an important predictor of these influencers' popularity and foundational for Nick Fuentes. So she goes on to tweet, here is their Charlie Kirk report. They have the executive summary here. Foreign adversaries are waging a new phase of information warfare against the United States. The advent of artificial intelligence and autonomous agentic technologies has accelerated the scale, speed, and sophistication of these operations. A case study from September 2025 assassination of Charlie Kirk shows how foreign states exploit America's open digital borders to seed divisive narratives, manipulate virality, and hijack algorithms faster than fact checkers, law enforcement, or platforms can respond. I was suspicious of the Charlie Kirk shooting the minute I found out that the old man who was screaming, shoot me, shoot me, shoot me, as if he just did it. When I found out that wasn't the guy, that was when I became suspicious of the Charlie Kirk shooting. That was about an hour after it happened, with no coaxing from anyone in the media. Once there were pictures of that guy making a spectacle of himself. What's his name? I forget his name. Everybody in the chat will know his name. The old guy. His name is not in my head now. Once I found out that wasn't the guy, I was like, all right, well, something stinks here. Something stinks here, because why is he acting like the guiltiest man on earth if he didn't do anything? People are like, well, he's a gadfly. Yeah, he's a gadfly. Jose Vega's a gadfly. Jose Vega's never acted like he murdered someone who just got murdered. That's not what a gadfly does. That's what a plant does. Okay, yes. That's like beyond trolling. Is to act like you were the guy who fired a shot that just killed somebody. No, that's very suspicious, and it doesn't take any foreign influence to convince me that is very suspicious.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Kaufman might have done it, but he was
I mean, you can count on one hand the amount of people who are that obsessed with their status as provocateurs. George Zinn, thank you very much for that in the chat. Key judgments. In the immediate aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination, foreign accounts, especially Iranian, Russian, and Pakistani, exploited the event to stoke civil war. Oh, they exploited the event to stoke civil war? I mean, J.D. Vance came out and said we can't coexist with the left at this point. You had Elon Musk basically calling for civil war. That's what made that moment so scary and so transformative for me, because I realized who the real accelerationists were. I realized, okay, who are the ones who actually want a societal collapse? Maybe there were foreign accounts that were pushing things, but the call was coming from inside the house on that day. I remember it very, very well. It was a very, very scary time. Foreign bots and sock puppets not only generated posts to seed narratives and switched handles to appear more relevant, but also boosted their visibility by mass creating accounts, padding views and likes, and brigading comments. Foreign actors are following a Russian disinformation playbook to weaponize domestic crises, like the Charlie Kirk said. Exact same language, exact same MO as post 2016 when the Democrats said this is a result of Russian interference. Now, our friend Gen X Girl wrote a Substack article where she dug a little deeper into this. Explosive allegations, pro-Israel group Vine and Fig Tree accused of running influence op inside the Trump administration. One of the key figures producing Vine and Fig Tree's reports is Zach Shapira, a former Twitter ex-executive who allegedly worked in trust and safety operations and product roles through 2025. Shapira also served as a commander in the Israel Defense Force. Look at that. In an April 2025 VFT intelligence brief titled Foreign Malign Influence Targeting the Trump Administration's Policy and Personnel, Shapira is directly tied to the analysis. And there's a document there, Foreign Malign Influencer Targeting the Trump Administration's Policy and Personnel. She provides the receipt. Shapira also writes for the Times of Israel and is listed as a named Jewish expert on jewishexperts.com. He is the founder and president. Yeah, I guess there goes that potential sponsorship. Damn. He is the founder and president of the J'accuse Coalition for Justice, a group dedicated...
We did hear back from B'nai B'rith, though. I'll talk to you about it.
Yeah. Of the J'accuse Coalition for Justice, a group dedicated to combating anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, and anti-Israel bias. I don't know that there's any affiliation between that group and some of the protesters outside the New York Times after they ran Nicholas Kristof's piece about the Israeli grape epidemic, if you will. But there were people out there with signs saying J'accuse. So I'm assuming they're affiliated with this group, since there is a group by that name that seems to exist for the very kind of purpose that people in that rally crowd would be sympathetic to. In both his leaked VFT work and a public interview with Israel paid influencer Emily Austin, Shapiro repeated claims that criticism of Israel, skepticism toward Trump administration policies favoring Israel, and dissent from figures are largely the result of foreign psyops by Russia, Iran, and China. He openly advocates for whole-of-government responses to police these narratives. In a recent opinion article for the Washington Post, Shapira praised X's About This Account feature as a step toward digital borders, while pushing for platforms to prioritize authentic domestic content, downrank suspicious accounts, and work with the U.S. government to treat foreign influence as a national security issue. This mirrors the exact monitoring and labeling tactics found in the leaked VFT documents he helps produce, reframing legitimate America First criticism of endless foreign aid and Israeli influence as dangerous foreign interference. Yes, so here is an article that he wrote in the Atlantic, co-wrote. A great unmasking on X is arming Americans with digital borders. Remember that thing? We even covered that. We covered it as kind of a joke segment when a lot of those like AI bullshit cartoon accounts got exposed as being, foreign accounts. Well, this is the real purpose for that. See, this is why it's too late to save this country, because the people making the decisions, the people making the moves are always 10 steps ahead of everybody else, even including people like us who think that because we follow this for a living and we're super on top of things, that we're on the cutting edge of what's new and what's relevant. No, there are a lot of head fakes that are just impossible to see coming when you're not the one in the smoke-filled room, right? From an America First perspective, Shapira exemplifies the problem. A former senior Twitter ex-official and IDF commander now working through a pro-Israel nonprofit to monitor, smear, and counter American citizens who prioritize U.S. interests over Israel's. His work consistently seeks to equate dissent from pro-Israel policies with foreign subversion, using the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism as a tool to suppress domestic debates. So Alex Jones tweets out, this is even worse than it looks. The Trump administration outsourced government weaponization to Israel so Americans could be targeted without congressional oversight. Trump is using the same illegal tactics that were used on him against some of his oldest supporters. As usual, I am a major target in the documents obtained from Sebastian Gorka, an Israeli intelligence op. So you have here weaponization of the government and infiltration by Israeli actors to essentially police right-wing dissenters, just as left-wing dissenters are being policed. It all goes back.
I'm very surprised to find that the leopard ate my face.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, it all goes back to Israel. But the other takeaway from here, especially when you look at the monitoring of social media and the aggregation of your data on social media, just how much information you make available to these people in terms of your preferences, your tendencies, okay, how they piece together, okay, someone's religious tendencies tend to correlate to support for this person over that person. Like, to me, the big takeaway of this story, like huge picture beyond the surface of what we're seeing, is social media, particularly X. I mean, you look at the overlap between higher ups at X and IDF soldiers and, Israeli ops, basically. X especially is really just become a Zionist surveillance op. Like, that's really what it is. And they've created this trap for people, and it's an effective trap because it's where so much of the conversation is. I mean, Twitter is the #1 news app in the world. It's where people go to read the news, to get the up-to-the-minute news, right? It's not just a social media app. It is a true news app in that sense. You actually get breaking news before the major outlets pick it up with when you're on X, if you know how to discern the fake stuff from the real stuff, which you get a knack for over time.
And at the same time, the algorithm, like working on the Massie story today, if you just put in a Massie search, yeah, it'll have those Meet the Press clips. Most of the responses will be the Juanita Broderick types. He's a liar, right? Because the algorithm's boosting that. You can't tell me that's most people.
Oh, no,
are reacting to those clips that way.
Well, this is, yes. I mean, it's a psyop within a psyop within a psyop within a psyop. Like, when you looked at the Hassan Piker subpoena and you looked at the reactions online of so many people, ha ha, FAFO, you get what you deserve. Yeah. Like, already you're talking about a cohort that is just self-selected as like the most psychologically damaged, emotionally retarded people on earth. Normal people do not behave that way in reaction to any piece of news. Piece of, like, people's first reaction when they hear a story like that is not to go online and gloat and laugh and mock and ridicule and pour salt in the wounds. Like, normal people do not act that way. Normal people do not act the way hyper online people act. So when you're on Twitter, and to a certain extent, you kind of have to be on there in order to get the up to the minute news, if like you do what we do, or like you're hyper interested in this stuff. But you also have to understand you are walking into a trap. In one sense, it is the democratization of information and the democratization of discourse, in that you can tag a guy like Alex Jones, a world famous guy, and there's a chance he'll see it and he'll respond to you, and you can go back and forth with like a world famous person, even if they don't follow you, even if you could just tag them.
Oh, look what happened with Massie, man. That was like a random woman.
Exactly.
That he went back and forth with.
Exactly.
She had like 3,000 followers, that one.
Right. So like, you can reach world famous people. It's not likely that they'll respond to you, but it's possible that they will. And it happens on a quite regular basis that like ordinary people get in touch with very famous people. And in a sense, that's kind of a miracle. But because it's such a miracle, of course, the techno-feudal surveillance lords used it to build a trap where you are volunteering your information to people who seek to gather as much data on you as possible, make as many connections as possible in order to learn as much about people as they can, in order to what? In order to manipulate them or steer them, or in the worst cases, in order to surveil them, or in some cases to destroy them, right? To go after people's reputations, right? So it is it's a very, very dangerous thing. I mean, I'm becoming increasingly of the opinion that all of this social media stuff has just been a horrible net negative to the world. like it's
Yo,
so
man, I've been saying
obviously,
that since we started the show.
yeah, like it's just so obviously a bad thing on balance. And that's not to say it doesn't have its benefits. It does. But on balance, are people better off without this shit? Yeah,
Yep.
1,000%.
Yep.
1,000%. Because this is just one of many examples about how they use this illusion of freedom, this illusion of the democratization of discourse in order to fence people in worse than they already are.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the medium is the message. I've been saying this for as long as we've been on the air, that the Xers are the last generation to experience both worlds, right? We came up at a time when that was analog, and basically when we were teens and in our 20s, the internet was built out and commercialized at that time. So we experienced both ends. About half our lives were pre-internet and half have been post-internet. I promise you, for those who don't have personal knowledge of it, it was better without. It was better without. It was better for people's emotional health, for their psychological health, for their critical thinking capacity, for their reading habits, which we know reading stimulates your brain and helps the two hemispheres of the brain to communicate. It's a very key exercise to having a really well-functioning brain. This kind of superficial read two paragraphs, is not a substitute for being able to read a book. And what these things have done to you is make your attention span so short. The next Gen Alpha is freaking illiterate. This is a crisis, man. They can't read. Like, people are getting dumber and dumber. And what it's done to social connection, what it's done to people's sense of privacy, even in public, you had some assumption of privacy. You didn't have everybody walking around with a fucking camera all the time, ready to record you, right? People were freer to express themselves. Now people have to constantly worry that they're going to be caught on camera doing something. It was better. Overall, sure, man, is it made a lot of things easier and more efficient? Is it a force multiplier for an individual entrepreneur or business person where, like, you can get a lot more done with it, whereas in the past you would have to hire a team to do things that you can now just do? For example, when I used to cast shows, you'd have to, if you had a schedule change, you had to call 100 fucking people.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Literally. Now you just would send out an email, right? You can just maneuver like that. And that, of course, carries over to all the whole society. But in the end, if people are lonely, if it's broken down community, if it's broken down normal human interaction, if it's created a psychological environment where people are distracted, incapable of concentrating, in a constant state of anxiety, yeah, you're getting more information. What's the quality of the information, and what's the depth of your capacity to absorb and contemplate the information that you're getting? When you put all that together, yeah, of course it's a net loss.
Yeah,
A monumental one.
A monumental one. You also, even in the ways that even in the senses that it makes life more convenient, like the example that you just gave, if you have a schedule change for a show, or let's say you're a restaurant and there's an emergency and you have to close, right? You can post on your website, closed today. You can post on your Facebook, closed, right? The fact that you can do that creates the expectation in the minds of the masses that nothing should ever be unexpected, right? Like in the 90s, if you pulled up to a restaurant that closed unexpectedly and they posted a sign on the door, hey, due to an unforeseen gas leak or whatever, we had to shut down. They're like, all right, whatever, find someplace else to go. nowadays you're like, well, why didn't you announce that? Why didn't you post that? Why didn't you, like there's everybody is more on edge because there's more the expectation of instant communication and flawless communication, right? So I feel like it just makes everybody much more tense. And in the case of social media, talk about the social aspect, and especially when it comes to like political interactions. I've said this for a million years now, so I won't dwell on this too much. It gives people an inflated sense of where conversations actually are. Like once I start researching a topic, like the Pope AI story was a big story, but it wasn't the only story. But once you put in a few searches on X to get headlines, it feeds you 80% Pope shit. So if you're interested in a certain thing and you go on Twitter, it will create the illusion that everybody's talking about that thing. That's why there were people saying Jill Stein's going to break 5% this year. No, she's not. You just think that because you are into the Green Party and the Twitter is feeding you Green Party updates.
This guy, H.A. Goodman, says Bernie is going to triumph at the convention.
Exactly. So it creates a lot of misimpressions about where certain conversations are and how to what extent they have actually influenced the discourse. But I think most importantly, as it pertains to like a story like this, people become obsessed with how they are perceived by people who are technically real, but real in the most abstract sense. Like, people talking shit about you online hurts people a lot more than it should. If those people aren't in your life, they're basically not real to you. I mean, they exist in real life. They're not fake. At least most of them aren't, but some of them are. Some of these are bots, right? Some of this is actually fake. But even the ones who aren't fake are essentially fake as it pertains to you. Like, as far as you're concerned, they may as well be fake. That's why Tucker says, I don't read what people say about me online. It's like I don't, like, Tucker obviously doesn't operate his X account. He never gets into beefs with people because I think the healthier thing to do is to say your piece and put it out there. And that's it. Because once you get into back and forth, once you become so hyper obsessed with the opinions of online cliques of people, well, now is when you dig in harder and harder. It's when you become more and more anxious, more and more nervous, more and more angry. It's when you say crazier and crazier shit, which gets surveilled by the overlords. Like, it's a trap. It's a giant trap. And in this case, I mean, we've seen so much about X now. This is a Zionist surveillance op, basically, is what it has turned into now. So you can't not use it if you do what we do. But I've been using it much more sparingly for that reason, and I advise everybody to do the same.
That's our PSA for today.
That's our PSA.
Less X.
Yeah. Touch
less
grass.
X, more P.
yeah, exactly. Less X, more grass. That's right. Okay, let's go to some super chats and Rumble rants. Ham Hawk says, this is great. I kept thinking I'm late to the show only to find I'm right on time. Yeah, you like the technical difficulties, right? Because they give you some extra time to get here. There you go. That's one way to look at it. That's a glass half.
I was still late with my coffee.
Yeah, Russ was still late with the coffee. Hey, we're at 501 in the like column. Can we smash that like button a little bit harder, please? And thank you very much. We got 1,800 strong in the YouTube chat, 494 over on Rumble. You know what, Russ? Is Vianticus changing the end to say something like that is something I would totally do anyway, so you're not far off. Richard Lee Pemberton, I'm a boomer. You guys are 100% right about our lame brain demographic. There you go.
Boom. How hard is that?
How hard is it? It makes you look better that you're one of the good ones.
Of course it
Like
does.
we're elevating you.
Right.
You know?
Right. I'm not like the rest of them.
Right. Exactly. Vianticus Prime. I often say to avoid using words like right, wrong, good, and evil. These words only describe issues as extremes and ignore the gray. I stick to advantage, disadvantage, benefit, detriment, risk, and reward. Thank you, Vianticus. Kemen says, I went to the optometrist today and they put drops in my eye. Keaton, is that a baseball cap or a modified kippa? No judgment. This is New York Knicks hat. New York Knicks are going to the finals. I'm wearing this hat today. I might take it off a little while. It's getting warm in here. Vianticus Prime, boomer, blindly obeying obvious mind eroding rhetoric. There you go. Look at that. Look at you, Vienticus. Oh, George says it's weird when you wind up reading our rants and chats twice.
I read that already.
Oh, well, I think that's his joke. I think this is
Oh,
a gag.
I see.
It's a
That's
gag.
the gag.
That's
That's
look
the
at that.
bit.
Russell caught you. There you go. Nice try, oh George. See, these Israelis are tricky. Got to watch yourself.
They are.
Gotta watch yourself around them. You got a reputation. I often defend boomers and Jews, says Stoop Sign. 4 of my parents' step are based boomers. All 5 of my step-in-law acquired Jewish family members are based on Israel, including my stepmom and my half-sister. Always a diplomat, Stoop Sign. Always a diplomat. Thank you very much. Vienticus says, after Charlie Kirk died, I couldn't tell if I was seeing posts from Americans or the IDF. The IDF dresses up in women's clothing for social media and violently wish death on the people. The people posting about Charlie Kirk dressed up in women's clothing for social media and violently wish death upon people, so couldn't tell a difference. Yep, could be tough to say. Is it better to be on jewishexperts.com or felchingexperts.com? There could be some overlap there, Vienticus.
Probably quite a bit. Did you see RFK? I don't know why.
The snakes?
Yeah, like why would you do that when you know there's a lot of scrutiny on your strange relationship to animals?
Yeah, I mean, I
guess.
Why
would you post a video of you catching snakes?
The RFK stands think he's manly for doing that. Look at this
high
tea. Look at this high tea guy who pumps iron and handles snakes like Indiana Jones. Yeah, it was a pretty funny video. I almost suggested we open with that, but we got all distracted because of our tech issues. In defense of the boomers, these iPad kids now will probably be much worse when they can vote. I don't know, man.
If they can read it.
Yeah, if they can read it. If they can read the ballot. Exactly. All right. We can move right on along here. Okay, I have my videos dumped in, but you're next, right? Okay, yep, you're next.
I'm next. All right. The Munk debates. These are the first ones I've watched since Taibbi and Murray. Wow. Different times, man. Different times. So this is a rough week for Mike Pompeo. Here's Mike Pompeo, of course, joined with the anti-peace Zionists when Trump, for 10 minutes before they reminded him of that tape they have of him raping a 12-year-old, thought he might make peace with Iran. The deal being floated with Iran seems straight out of the Wendy Sherman, Robert Malley, Ben Rhodes playbook. Pay the IRGC to build a WMD program and terrorize the world. Not remotely America first. It's straightforward. Open the damn strait. Oh yeah. Well, you should go do it. Bring like a shovel and an Uzi. I'm sure you'll get it done. Deny Iran access to money. Take out enough Iranian capability so it cannot threaten our allies in the region. Well, somebody should have thought of that. Yeah. Overdue. Let's go. Listen, I think these other countries in the region, like Saudi Arabia, UAE, I think they rely on desalination plants for like 90% of their water. So, you put Iran in a position that's existential. There's nothing to stop them from making all those countries uninhabitable, literally uninhabitable. So what the fuck are you talking about? And in a rare case where I agree with something that came out of the White House, spokesperson Stephen Chung said, Mike Pompeo has no idea what the fuck he's talking about. He should shut his stupid mouth and leave the real work to the professionals. He's not read into anything that's happening, so how would he know? Now, I would argue if you were professionals, you wouldn't have gotten us into this shit to begin with. But nonetheless, Mike Pompeo would be happy to bring us to complete absolute Armageddon to just make the whole situation worse. All right, so Mike Pompeo with Victoria Nuland, talk about your debate team from hell. Had a debate with John Mearshimer. I forget the name of the other guy. Can you look that up while I'm playing this?
It's Stephen Walt.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Stephen Walt. Okay, so now keep in mind, man, these guys are not by any stretch of the imagination foreign policy radicals. I've watched most of the debate now. And they think they agree with the containment of the Soviet Union and the Cold War. They agree with the first Iraq War Desert Storm, with kicking Saddam out of Kuwait. They think China needs to be contained. Mearshimer supports military intervention for Taiwan if it came to that. So these guys are not like radical anti-imperialist crusaders by any means. The thing is, Pompeo and Nuland are fucking nuts. And if you watch this, what continually struck me is how completely divorced the people who rule us and their guiding philosophy is from the people. I don't think, certainly in the modern era, there has ever been a time where the opinions of the people who are in a position to make decisions are so completely divorced from the people that they govern. There is no argument you could make that you have a democracy when you have such a disconnect between the decision makers and the people who are impacted by their decisions. So here's a little bit of Mearshimer. His opening statement pointed out quite rightly what the impact of our decisions have been. So the premise of the debate is, should the United States go after monsters? And this is taken from a James Madison speech from, back in the early 19th century, where he basically made the non-interventionist argument. He made the argument the United States should not be involved in regime change. We should not be involved in chasing monsters around the world. So that's the proposition. Should the United States chase monsters?
To do is pick up where Steve left off and talk about the costs and consequences of being a crusader state. And let me start first with the costs, the human costs of being a crusader state. Let me give you two examples. First has to do with a study that was done by the Watson Center at Brown University that looked at the number of people who have been killed, either directly through combat or indirectly, as a result of the various wars that the United States has been deeply engaged in the greater Middle East since 9/11 or since 2001. And what the Watson Center discovers is that between 4.5 million and 4.6 million people have been killed in the greater Middle East since 9/11 as a result of these wars. Let me give you another example. And this has to do with sanctions. As you know, the United States is addicted to sanctioning countries all over the world. And sanctions are often used for the purposes of regime change, which of course is what crusading is all about. There is a magazine called The Lancet, which is one of the most prestigious medical journals in the world. And last August, this is August 2025, it issued a study which reported that unilateral sanctions by the United States over a 50-year period, this goes from 1971 to 2021, over that 50-year period, unilateral sanctions by the United States resulted in 28 million deaths. Just think about those numbers. This is what you get when you turn into a crusader state. Now, some people may argue that this makes good sense, that these horrendous costs are justified by the end result. This is an argument that Madeleine Albright made in a famous conversation with Leslie Stahl of CBS. Leslie Stahl said to her, do you know that 500,000 children have died in Iraq as a result of US sanctions? This was in 1996. And Leslie Stahl asked Madeleine Albright if she thought that was justified. And Madeleine Albright shockingly said that she thought it was the right thing to do, to in effect murder 500,000 Iraqi children for the purposes of crusading. Of course, it didn't work out that way. And what happened is that we had to invade Iraq, as you all remember, in 2003. The sanctions didn't work. This brings us to the whole question of the consequences of these acts where we crusade around the world, the consequences of regime change. Just to start, we have a rich literature in academia which shows that when you knock off regimes and you try to promote democracy, it fails almost every time. The only case since World War II where we succeeded in regime change was in Panama in 1989. This means we have not succeeded in producing a regime change that led to a democracy since the Cold War ended, since 9/11. This is a policy that fails almost every time. If you have any doubts about that, think about Afghanistan. We knocked off the Taliban. Who's in control in Afghanistan now? The Taliban. Think about Iraq, one of the greatest foreign policy disasters in American history. We went in there in 2003. Obama took us out in 2011. We had to go back in 2014 to deal with ISIS, and we're still there. And then there's Iran. I believe that Iran will eventually be proven to be the most disastrous foreign policy decision in American military history. So if you look at Afghanistan, you look at Iraq, and you look at Iran, you see, as the academic literature says, that regime change does not work. It's remarkably difficult to promote democracy at the end of a rifle barrel. One final point. One might think that crusaders are in favor of promoting democracy, period. But that's not true. Crusaders distinguish between like-minded democracies, this is a phrase that Mike often uses, and other democracies. And Mike is interested in producing a world with like-minded democracies. And of course, the end result of this is that we go around the world and we knock off democracies that we do not consider to be like-minded. So you should remember as we go through this debate tonight that the United States has a rich history of knocking off democracies that are not like-minded around the world. Iran 53, Guatemala 54, Chile 73, I could go on and on. We have a rich history of knocking off democracies. These are not like-minded democracies. These are in effect monster democracies. So what we have here, the bottom line, is we have a situation where the United States tries to promote like-minded democracies and fails. Thank you.
Okay. Now that, look, as I said, he's not a radical. Like, I would argue that if you could give that speech, it should imply to you that we have no business getting involved in Taiwan. I don't see how you could give that speech and have it not lead to the conclusion that our containment of China is completely unjustified. Frankly, I don't know how you could give that speech and not come to the conclusion that we are the evil that we're supposedly fighting against, that we represent the evil in the world. Nonetheless, that was a masterclass. That was a masterclass in the consequences of these policies. You know, we are not directly impacted by it. So, you know, to us, it's the Stalin line, right? One death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic. Like, we don't even think about what the real human toll is of the numbers he's talking about. 45 million people killed by sanctions since 1971. Those are people's children, their parents, their loved ones dead. You know, I was just in countries where there was a horrific human toll that you could still see on the streets, man. You go to Cambodia, you got people with no freaking arms playing in bands with their freaking feet for money because they've been injured by mines and bombs that we've dropped there. Freaking 3 million killed by the Khmer Rouge, who were elevated by our bombing a country of peasant farmers. There's no way they would have come into power. We completely destabilized the country. Not to mention, of course, what we've done in Laos and what we've done in Vietnam and countless other places around the world. Like the whole idea that we're fighting evil, it's absurd. It's absurd. And that's a place that a guy like Mearshimer, man, look, in the end, he comes out of the establishment. Like, that's a place his mind just won't go. He won't go to the logical conclusion of what he's saying, that actually we are the threat to peace and we have no business containing anybody. They need to contain us. That's something he never gets to. Want to say anything before we go on?
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
All right. I think it's worth listening to a little of what Nuland's response to this is.
Thank you, audience, for keeping our debaters on time and on their toes. Our last opening statement goes to Victoria Nuland.
Well, thank you, Munk team, for the opportunity to join this great audience and my colleagues here on the stage for an important conversation. Let me start where Secretary Pompeo finished. Neither the United States nor Canada nor any of the great democracies can afford to cede the world to monsters or allow them to upend the global order that has benefited free nations for 80 years. Mike and I believe, as he said, that the U.S. and our allies are far better protected by confronting those monsters before they grow powerful enough to threaten us at home or to destroy the foundations of the world that we have built. But as you've heard, our opponents...
What world have we built exactly? What world have we built? One where people outside of our borders suffer under the yoke of our resource exploitation, and if they try to resist, we overthrow their governments. And one where, particularly as an American speaking about this, you've got a very small number of very rich oligarchs reaping all the benefits of the society, while most people live paycheck to paycheck. That is the world that you're saying we need to defend. And the idea that the monsters are outside. Name a country that has killed anywhere near as many people as we've killed over the last 50 years. Any country. Millions. Mearshimer just laid out the numbers. She's not arguing with the numbers. Like this whole liberal vision of what the Western world represents is really a fucking obscenity when you consider the level of suffering that any benefits that people who live within that cocoon that she's describing might enjoy, which is increasingly specious, which is why people are starting to question these narratives more and more. It's not that people got better, it's that they're not benefiting like they used to.
Yeah, well, I mean, they consider, I mean, this is part of the whole construct of the debate, right? Should we go and fight monsters, right? Like what people like Nuland's and like Pompeo, what they have in common is that, you know, they'll look at statistics or they'll look at governments and they'll say, well, you know, under communism, tens of millions of people died. Therefore, it's on us to liberate those people from communism, right? So like they consider the internal policy failings of these states to be their business to go in and litigate at the barrel of a gun. We have policy failings here. We're the only industrialized country on earth where people die because they cannot afford medicine. Does that give another country the right to come and overthrow our government? Of course it doesn't.
Right.
And we would all resist that if another government tried to do that to us.
Right.
So, you know, just because you can point to systems with failings, that does not give us the right to then go in and take matters into our own hands. But that's how they see it. And that's why they say this is a world we're trying to create.
Well, they don't even see it that way. That's the excuse.
Well, that's what
the
they
excuse.
say.
They don't care about what in turn. Look at who we're allies with.
Right.
As Mearshimer pointed out, we knock off democracies all the time if they try to do things in a way that we don't like. It has nothing to do with what's going on internally. We're allies with freaking Saudi Arabia. We're allies with UAE.
Have a different view. They called it offshore balancing, a realist grand strategy, in a piece that they co-authored in 2016. And here's the key tenet of that strategy, and I quote, "If there is no potential hegemon in sight in Europe, in North Asia, or in the Gulf, then there's no reason to deploy ground or air forces there, and little reason for a large military establishment at home. As the great crooner Sam Cooke would say, ladies and gentlemen, what a wonderful world that would be.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Just when I thought it couldn't get
she's
worse.
going to win the Hillary Clinton cringe award.
Yeah. Just when I thought you couldn't do worse.
Not our world. From Putin's 4 years of vicious war against Ukraine, to China's coercion of Taiwan and its neighbors, to Iran's refusal to give up its nuclear weapons capability and its dominance now of the Straits of Hormuz, the dangers, the monsters seeking to dominate Europe, Northeast Asia, and the Gulf are growing stronger.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is just absolutely absurd. Every accusation is a confession. What threat does Iran pose to the United States? Is Iran going to come invade the United States? Well, for that matter, if you just leave them alone, what threat do they actually pose to Israel? Do you think Iran's going to pick up and invade Israel? They're going to go across the borders into Israel and take all the shit that would come with that? No. China? What threat? Do you think China's going to, launch ships and invade California? We're being outcompeted by China. That's why you can't buy a BYD here, right? Because that would be the end of the American electric car business, because they're so much better than what Elon over there is making. It's funny, we're really into competition and free markets, except when we're not, right? All right, so to move on, you get the idea. These are the polls of the debate. So here's Pompeo here, explaining to us what a good thing invading Iran has been, or it's starting a war with Iran, I should say.
Prices are high. That's not good. I get it. But when we
finally,
in the end, ensure that Iran is 25, 50 years from a nuclear weapon, your children and grandchildren will be far safer, and the cost to American people will be real, but the benefits enormous.
It's amazing. They're literally seizing people's homes right now through eminent domain to build data centers, right? And you're saying that the threat mitigation that you're engaged in is a preemptive war against Iran so that they don't get a nuclear weapon for 50 years. That's the level of danger. Yeah, we're supposed to, it's a good thing.
Well, that's all. Look, this is the propaganda I've heard all my life. And frankly, when I was younger, I swallowed a lot of it. I was the kind that they pitched the smart version of this to, the Foreign Policy magazine version. The world's a complicated place, realpolitik. We gotta, there's a lot of push and pull in foreign policy. Yeah, man. And then, for the judge, they just go, America. They know with the more educated libs, they can't pitch it that way. So they pitch it as you're smart if you absorb the kind of foreign policy that Pompeo and Nuland represent. That's like the realpolitik view, right? This is how they rehabilitated Henry Kissinger. Right? They made him like an avatar of real politic, and he's so smart. And if you think like him, you're smart too, right? The idea that there are all these monsters and threats outside, I think they're able to get away with that more with Americans than any other population, because Americans, I believe this is true. It's definitely a high number, and I think it might be the most in the Western world. People in America do not have a passport. They don't go to these places. You could tell them anything, right? There be dragons, right? There be dragons. Right. They don't fucking know. They don't know. Oh, it's dangerous. And then you actually go out there. Most people just want to live in peace, man. It's only really Americans that you hear that kind of bellicosity from. Really, no other people in the world are interested in fighting like that. So this was right after Mearshimer talked a little bit about the Iran war.
States has lost this war. It can't figure out how to solve this war, and it's going to have enormously negative consequences for all of you. You should understand that. We are in deep trouble in Iran. And this is what happens when you go around the world slaying monsters.
Mic drop. So they went on to talk a little bit about Ukraine, a subject that Victoria Nuland certainly should know a thing or two about.
I think this war was principally the fault of the United States. I don't deny for 1 second that Putin was responsible for actually invading Ukraine, but I do think that it was precipitated by NATO expansion.
Is Putin today a monster, both at home and in Ukraine?
No.
He is not.
No.
He is not. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
See?
There you go.
See?
Look, you had a debate on NATO enlargement in 22. You had a debate on Ukraine in 22. I will not reprise that. These guys have actually...
I just want to, I don't mean to disrupt the flow. According to the question of this debate, even if he did consider him a monster, that still would not justify provoking him into a war. Like
Right.
even if he gave you, even if he gave you that point, that still wouldn't strengthen your argument.
accused me.
Well, and I mean, Joe Biden funded and equipped genocide. Is he a monster?
Right. Is
And
Joe Biden a monster? That's a good question.
is he a monster? I didn't clip this because this is gonna run a little long as it is. But they had a back and forth about Israel, where Pompeo emphatically claims Israel's not committing a genocide. They haven't committed a genocide, but you know, who committed a genocide? China, the Uyghurs, and I have yet to see any evidence of that, including the evidence of my own eyes. But even if you did believe that, what do you mean they didn't commit a genocide? And you know, they came back rightly listing all the human rights organizations, including B'Tselem, that have identified this as a genocide. So not interested in hunting monsters, certainly not the monsters within.
Toppling the Yanukovych regime. It's direct Russian talking points that they use when they do that.
Oh,
NATO,
yeah, I know.
and I
'Cause we're gonna
Ukraine in 22. Had a debate on NATO enlargement in 22. You had a debate on Ukraine in 22. I will not reprise that. These guys have actually accused me of toppling the Yanukovych regime. It's direct Russian talking points that they use when they do that. NATO, and I served there twice, including as U.S. ambassador, is a defensive alliance. It does not
yeah.
come for you
Oh,
if
sure.
you don't come for it. And when we enlarged, and when we began enlarging NATO in 97, we invited the Russians into a partnership with NATO. We did it twice, including seating them around the table. And the Russians were not able to use that format as the primary security format in Europe. That is what was offered. And instead, they couldn't get out of their Soviet mindset.
Okay, so a lot of our audience probably knows about this. This was a lot to like put together this morning, so I didn't get a chance to pull the relevant articles, but you can look this up. The Russians famously asked to join NATO.
Yes.
Putin spoke to Clinton about joining NATO, and Clinton told him no. And he said, well, why not? The Cold War is over, right? And Clinton told him he couldn't. He said, well, you know, it kind of seems like NATO's about us. No, it's not about you. Well, then why can't we join? Well, you know, you can, right? So she's full of shit. And
It's almost like it wasn't really about tearing down the wall. It's almost like the Cold War didn't really end, right?
no, it didn't end. Why couldn't you
Didn't
let
really
the
end.
Russians
'Cause
join
why
NATO?
couldn't you? Yeah, that's like
Right.
you know, a governor in the Confederacy. Hey, look, you know, we offered to free the slaves. They couldn't let go of that black mindset, so
Yeah.
we didn't. You know, like yeah, obviously there was zero intention of absorbing
Right.
Russia into the international order, which would have
Right.
avoided just about every conflict.
All of this.
Yes,
All
just
of
about
this.
every single conflict that we're in now, even ones that don't directly involve Russia.
Well, especially when you consider, you know, I'm not a Russia expert, but if you look at Russian history, there has long been a kind of push-pull between wanting to be Western and insisting on being, you know, its own entity. That was a moment after the collapse of the Soviet Union where I believe, based on the evidence, that Peter the Great impulse, that side of the Russian character, where they want to be Europe, where they want to be part of Europe rather than part of Asia, was very much at the forefront. Like, if you had brought them into the Western world, there's a very deep strain of that in the Russian psyche of wanting to be perceived that way.
Of course.
And wanting to be part of that.
Yes. I mean, people compare Putin to Peter the Great, framing Peter the Great as some, imperial warmongering crusader. Well, no, that's actually not what he was. He actually had a vision that is very much what you just talked about. And had we accommodated that, there could have, this is the irony, there could have actually been an end of history.
Yes.
A nod to the Francis Fukuyama book. Like, that could have actually happened. We envisioned an end of history. The end of history we envisioned is from now on, we get to do whatever the fuck we want to whoever the fuck we want.
Right. Because we won the Cold War.
Because we won. Right. And to the victors belong the spoils. Right.
So now Nuland here says, it's a Russian talking point that she engineered a coup, or was part of engineering the Maidan coup in Ukraine. We literally have her on tape planning the next government and saying fuck the EU. So here's some of that.
He's now gotten both Sari and Ban Ki-moon to agree that Sari could come in Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it. And, fuck the EU.
No, exactly. And I think we've got to do something to make it stick together, because you can be pretty sure that if it does start to gain altitude, the Russians will be working behind the scenes to try to torpedo it. And again, the fact that this is out there right now, I'm still trying to figure out in my mind why Yanukovych did that. But in the meantime, there's a Party of Regions faction meeting going on right now, and I'm sure there's a lively argument going on in that group at this point. But anyway, we could land jelly side up on this one if we move fast. So let me work on Klitschko, and if you can just keep, I think we want to try to get somebody with an international personality to come out here and help to midwife this thing. And then the other issue is some kind of outreach to Yanukovych, but we probably regroup on that tomorrow as we see how things start to fall into place.
So on that piece, Jeff, when I wrote the note, Sullivan's come back to me via phone.
Jake Sullivan.
You need Biden, and I said probably tomorrow for an attaboy and to get the deets to stick. So
Okay.
Biden's willing.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. So how dare they? How dare they insinuate that she helped to engineer a coup in Ukraine? Okay. Now that aside, Pompeo, just after getting his ass handed to him in this debate, he put this out. Putin's attack, including a hypersonic missile, was designed to terrorize and kill civilians. Pure evil. Now, even with its advance stopped, Moscow's desire to invade Europe remains. Deterrence requires the West to impose costs on Russian military and dual-use infrastructure. The people and leaders of Ukraine are defending their nation's sovereignty. All of Europe should support them, and American sovereignty benefits from Ukrainian security and victory as well. All right. So the premise of this debate, ironically, is fighting monsters and going after monsters. But you have to question who they define as the monsters. Now, by coincidence, at virtually the same time Mike Pompeo is putting out this tweet about the bravery of the Ukrainians standing up and defending Europe, they're having a repatriation for the remains of a Ukrainian military figure that Zelensky appeared at. There he is, kneeling there. Yeah, laying some flowers at the grave. And, he put out a little statement here about it. Colonel, it is in part, Andrei Melnik returned to a different Ukraine, not the one he had been forced to leave, but the one he had dreamed of. He dreamed of it, as did thousands of other such significant Ukrainian figures. I thank all those who are truly doing their best to ensure that our Ukrainian national memory remains a living memory. I am grateful to everyone who has worked to make such returns of great Ukrainian figures possible and to give the Ukrainian people their own pantheon of heroes. So who is this? Who is this honored figure? Melnik was a co-founder of the extremist Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists and became its leader in 1938, steering it toward a more radical and openly pro-German direction. The OUN, including both the Melnik and Bandera factions after their 1940 split, was involved in the mass killings of Poles, Jews, and Russians under German protection during World War II. Political scientist and Ukraine expert Ivan Kachanovsky pointed to Zelensky's recent remarks about Melnik's dream, recalling how the Nazi collaborator himself described it in July 1941. Quote, "We believe that Adolf Hitler's new order in Europe is the true order and that Ukraine is one of its spearheads." According to this interpretation, Zelensky's remarks imply that today's Ukraine, and by extension, the Western Bloc that strongly supports it, represents the very new order Melnik had envisioned. All right, so you see this RU News. So is this just Russian propaganda? Well, Israel doesn't think so. We regret the decision to hold an official state reburial ceremony for OUN leader Andrei Melnik, who collaborated with the Nazis. Okay, so this is the heroic resistance that we've put up against the Russians. The Russians apparently are the monsters, and these are the good guys. So is this an isolated incident? Well, here's a march that they just had. This was a couple days ago, a march against labor immigration in Ukraine. Nazis? What Nazis? What Nazis? They don't have Nazis in Ukraine. We're not backing Nazis in Ukraine. Pshaw, perish the thought. So here they get a little more into it. This is the clip that is really going around.
What human decency demands. You don't let a radical regime close off the global economy by firing Shahed missiles into nations that did nothing. Right? They're firing into civilians in the United Arab Emirates, even just this week. That's just not something that the world can accept. And so this monster is worthy of the hunt.
You do know, Mike, that we started the war.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Oh, no.
What a clown.
They weren't firing those missiles until Israel and the United States attacked Iran. You do understand that, right?
Welcome to 1979, when the revolutionary regime began to kill Europeans.
You do
I don't know
that
how
we
stupid.
overthrew the democratically elected government in 1954.
Just for the record, you were talking about this.
You don't think you think Iran's forgotten about that?
No, I suspect they've not.
You don't think Iran remembers that we supported Saddam Hussein in the Iran-Iraq War?
I know
forgotten
this.
about this?
I know this.
Other countries have history.
Do you think Iran is a monster?
No.
Okay.
Okay. There
I don't think.
No, that's it.
That's
it. That's the end of the story,
I
right?
think many countries do many bad things, including my own, and I wouldn't call the United States a monster.
That's where we disagree, my friend.
Do also remember that we wouldn't have had October 7th if we hadn't had Iranian support for Hamas.
I agree. We wouldn't have had October 7th if we'd gotten peace in the Middle East, and that's a much longer story.
It is, and every...
See, here's where they're never going to put anyone on a stage like this who would say, well, I think it wouldn't have happened if Israel had not been funding Hamas. They're never putting anyone
Well,
on
no, I
stage
mean,
who's
it's
gonna
funny
say
because, well, to that point, yeah, I mean, go ahead. You know how this ends at, actually, but they get a lot closer to that than you might actually think.
For Hamas.
I agree. We wouldn't have had October 7th if we'd gotten peace in the Middle East, and that's a much longer story.
It is, and every single U.S. president has tried and will continue to.
Not very hard.
But it is very important to emphasize there's no evidence that Iran even knew about October 7th, much less
Oh my
caused it.
goodness! Oh my goodness!
Right.
I'm sure it is lovely to live where you live and believe
there's
that.
no evidence
Oh
in the
my
public
goodness.
record of that.
Oh my goodness!
Now, they laugh at that, but the irony is, to what you were just talking about, not just about Israel funding Hamas, but there actually is documented evidence that Israel knew of October 7th a year in advance. Like the New York Times put out that Israel knew this plan was in the works for quite some time. So if you're going to talk about documented evidence, notice they don't produce any evidence to support any of their claims. They have no numbers on their side. They have no facts on their side. They have no history on their side besides 1979. That's the 1 year they all know now, which if the war's been going on since 1979, Mike Pompeo was the Secretary of State under Donald Trump in the first term. So as Secretary of State, not just as a bloviating talking head the way you are now, as someone with profound power atop the United States government, you might argue he's the second in command, right? I mean, or the second in terms of not in command, but second in terms of most influential. The most influential foreign policy person next to the president would be the Secretary of State. Not the vice president, who's the alternate president in case the president gets a nosebleed, but the Secretary of State. So as the second most influential foreign policy guy on earth, you did not suggest we invade Iran when you were Secretary of State. If they've been at war with us since 1979, why didn't you propose this then? Like, it's how stupid do you have to be to absorb this? It's unbelievable how stupid they think you are. And apparently they're right in many cases. That's how a guy like Ed Gallrein wins. You know, I mean, it is fucking mind boggling. But in terms of evidence, there's evidence Israel knew. There's documented evidence Israel knew.
Right, and that's what they did with the what would you say, Putin is a monster? Like, this is their whole thing. It's all about gatekeeping. It's all just mean girl stuff. Well, do you think that? Well, there you go. Right. You think that. You're one of those people. Right. Oh, must be nice to believe that. No evidence, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because they know the people that they make sense to, they don't have to have any evidence.
Right.
And here Andrew Day points that out. The most irritating moment from this clip isn't the monster thing. It's when Mearshimer observes there's no evidence Iran had foreknowledge of October 7th, and Nuland and Pompeo condescendingly scoff and sneer without actually producing the evidence. Of course, if there was any evidence, they'd say, well, did you read that article? Did you see that paper?
And it's printed in the paper of record. It's printed in the paper of record that Israel had a year's foreknowledge of October 7th.
Right. Aaron Mate. Pompeo and Nuland agree on everything when it comes to their life's work of foreign policy. So why are they in different political parties? As I'm sure Aaron Mate knows, there are not two different political parties, particularly in this area. But hey, man, it didn't swing very far because no one's buying this shit to begin with.
Right.
Pre-debate, it was 55-45 in favor of the Mearshimer Walt position. Post-debate, it was 56-44.
Look at that.
Right? Like, if you were dumb enough to go in holding the Pompeo Nuland position, there's nothing these guys were going to say that was going to make you change your mind. Right?
Should have had that debate in northern Kentucky. Would have been a better result.
It would have been. They would have won probably.
Yeah.
In northern Kentucky, depending on the demographic in the audience. But yeah, that's very well worth. At first, they paywalled it. You had to pay $25 to watch it. By the time I was finishing up, the Munk Debates released it on their YouTube channel. So if you want to watch it, it should be up there, not paywalled. Definitely well worth watching. Like I said, these guys are really, they're not foreign policy radicals. Pompeo and Nuland are foreign policy radicals. If your idea of radical is radical departure from what most people think, right? Mearshimer and Walt, that's probably about the middle. for most Americans, right? Most people, let's get real, don't believe what we believe, that America, or what I believe, I don't want to speak for you, that but I think you would agree with this, that America is the greatest threat to peace on earth, that America is the monster in foreign policy. Most Americans don't believe that, but they do believe what these guys are saying, that we shouldn't be involved in these wars, that it's been a mistake to do this, that we've caused incalculable harm to other societies that pose no threat to us. That is the centrist view. But the centrist view, the actual centrist view, does not hold sway. This is what I mean. You watch Pompeo and Nuland, they represent the foreign policy establishment. And to most Americans, that's insane. So in what sense do you have a democracy when you have a ruling class that on every level, on economics, on agriculture, on manufacturing, on foreign policy, is not only removed from public opinion, but is absolutely at war with public opinion? In what way do you have more freedom than they have in China? In what way do you have more control over your government? This whole premise that, well, at least I have my freedom. Yeah, you have freedom to talk shit like we do, as long as they don't think it's going to do anything, right? Hassan Piker, who's, ready to sheepdog everyone back into the Democratic Party, that's too much. That's too much. They gotta go roust him. It's amazing to watch these people who really belong in The Hague up there representing really the people who actually have the power, even though it's something that the vast majority of Americans would not agree with.
Yeah, I mean, I think guys like Mearshimer and guys like, Ritter, I think their spin on that is that, the United States should contain itself, right? I think that's their spin on it, right? Yeah, you just, you're essentially similar positions. I don't know Mearshimer's views or Ritter's views on X, Y, and Z, or A to Z, I should say. I know the basics, but I think that's where they would say they're kind of coming from. In terms of the debate, it's funny how Nuland and Pompeo undermine their own debate position every time they say, well, do you agree he's a monster? The question of the debate was not, is Putin a monster? Right. Is the Ayatollah a monster? Is, whoever is person X a monster? The question is, okay, let's grant you that they're monsters. Should we make it our business to go and make war against them? Is it in the interest of the United States and or the world? I don't remember the exact framing of the debate, but the question at hand grants you that, yes, there are monsters out there. So even if I say, yes, he is, that still doesn't give you the point, because I'm not arguing who is and who is not a monster. I'm saying it's not in the United States' interest or to the benefit of humanity for one country to take it upon itself to go out and knock off anyone who they consider to be a monster, right? So they undermine that point every time they open their mouth because they have no argument. They have no argument. It always resorts to that, just like in 2003, it was, well, if you're against the war in Iraq, well, you love Saddam Hussein. That's all they have. Right. All they have are these ridiculous 80 IQ bully tactics, that they use to whip people into shape.
Well, that's their go-to, because that is what they conspire with a complicit media in deploying when they need to propagandize the public, right? You go on Rachel Maddow and you rule people out of bounds who don't agree with this, right? The whole thing is about sneering at people who are outside of the bounds of what you are projecting as the acceptable conversation. And this is why your lib aunt is intolerable, right? Because she watches that shit on MSNBC and she absorbs that. And it is programming. And Fox does it too. It's just a different style. It's much more jingoistic, right? It's for a different audience. But yeah, no, it's not an accident that they go to that, because that's what they're used to. That's what they're used to. That's their whole tactic. That's how you keep presenting a view that really is fringe as the center.
Exactly. All right. We're going to move right on along here. First, a quick word from Rumble Wallet. So, quick question for everyone. How much control do you actually have over your money right now? Technology has changed everything, including how money works and how the economy works. And Rumble has integrated this new economy into their platform in an amazing way. It takes all the complexity of the new system and makes it very, very simple. When you sign up for Rumble Wallet, you can choose a currency of your choice: Bitcoin, dollar-backed stable coins, or even digital gold backed by real gold. There's no complicated setup. It connects with MoonPay, so you can use your credit card, your debit card, or your bank and be up and running in minutes, same day, very quickly. Once you're set up, you can even support your favorite Rumble creators like us directly, where when you Rumble rant us through your Rumble wallet, the platform takes 0 fees. And so it's a great way to support the free speech creator economy here on Rumble. So get started right now. Scan that QR code or click the link in the description and download the Rumble wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and get in the game. The QR code is right up on the screen there. You can scan that right now and get going. Wallet.rumble.com is the website. So get started with the Rumble wallet today. Okay. Let's see. Let's take some Rumble rants and super chats. Russ, you could take some of those.
All
I
right.
will, before you start reading those, just remind everybody it is post-game day for patrons. So our next segment will be the final segment on the public stream. And then we will be switching over to a members-only stream. So to get access to the full show today, plus the call-in Q&A, go to patreon.com/DoDissidents and sign up. Links are up there as well. Jake made some custom links, DoDissidents.com/Patreon/Substack or /locals. We got additional segments plus your calls coming up after the main stream. We do this once a month as a perk for our members who are the backbone of the show. So thank you all very much for your support. If you go to patreon.com/DoDissidents and sign up now, you will check the last 2 emails, because Jake sent an update with the new YouTube link. I believe he did anyway. But the initial email that went out this morning has the link to the post-game stream and to the call-in show as well, to the link to call in. We currently have, how many are hanging out in the members-only room right now? We got 31 over there in the members-only room right now. And if you are a Rumble Premium member, you will also have access to the stream as well. All right, go ahead. Let's take some chats.
All right, ready?
We're ready.
Ready to rock? Bianticus Prime, I agree with Nocturnal Human. Kids can't read, and it's bad. When I was working with kids a few years ago, it didn't matter the age. They had no interest in learning. Yeah, it is bad. It's bad. Like it's very science fiction, man. Like you really are creating idiocracy. Like, why even write a novel? Who's going to be able to read it?
Right.
Wumber, Russ, do you know a good Chinese real estate agent? I do not. You know, you can't actually own your apartment there. You know, the state owns it. You're leasing it. Same in Vietnam, actually. Burhunk, love from Bahrain. Final exams next week, and I will let the first cheating student go unnoticed in your honor.
Based.
Make up for any past inadvertent anti-Semitism, I'm sure. The second gets a drone.
Based.
Funny stuff. Mark Pugliese, yeah, but Russ, the Zoomers would never have risen up in protest against Israel on October 8th without the internet. That's not what you didn't have protests until you had the internet?
Yeah.
There were no protests. You didn't have an enormous propaganda apparatus for the Iraq War, which had enormous protests against it. Right. No, that's not true. People, when you didn't have an internet, people coordinated differently.
Right.
They had
People
different
had
ways
to
of
touch
doing
grass
it.
and make friends.
Exactly. Kevin G. Russ, not just Generation X, also Zennials, elder millennials grew up without internet. We remember analog also. Yeah, but like not, you didn't
Yeah, we were right at the
age
cusp
without it.
Right.
We like really, the internet didn't take off until we were in our late teens, early 20s. And even that,
I'd say even later than that. I mean,
it took a long time to build out.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like it wasn't fully functioning until like the early 2000s,
right,
late 90s. Millraven, I'm 63. You'll never know how hard it was to march for peace as a toddler, much less dodge Nam as a tween. Little wonder our cohort is brain damaged. Yeah, you're right. You're right in the you're right in the like youngest boomers.
Right.
EF Husso, Russ, stop worrying, dude. Remember, Brondo has electrolytes. Yeah, seriously. Free men die free. Late 80s babies still mostly grew up without the digital takeover. Napster LimeWire was the turning point.
Yeah, we grew up without it. I'm
Early
86.
2000s were pretty awesome tech-wise.
Yeah, I'm 86. So yeah, we kind of grew up right at the cusp. Yeah, but you know, if you're the generation before us, you were like an adult before the internet.
Exactly.
We were still like college kids. Like the internet was kind of our gateway into adulthood, you know, because of when it came around. So we still had like a pre-internet time where it wasn't what it is now, obviously.
If you're an Xer, when you were a child, you used dial-up phones.
Right.
Right. By the time you got to college, the internet was being built out. Right. So we remember that world.
Right.
You know. So millennials, like, it was in progress, but it wasn't what it would rapidly become. We saw that whole thing happen.
Right.
Oh, George, cool boomer should own it. You rock. Yeah, exactly, man. Look, Xers, I speak against Xers too. Like Xers can split either way, which makes sense to me. Like being one, that makes sense. You have Xers who are more radical, and then you have Xers who basically absorbed all the boomer stuff.
Right.
They're basically like boomers, and it's about 50-50. And at least in terms of like polling and vote results, they tend to split down the middle. Kuznetsky Bassane, I miss the days of answering machines and payphones and not always being accessible. Amen. Yes. Good times, man. Good times. R. Dean W. Maybe it's just my fondness for Legos, but I stand with Iran.
Legos.
They're good with those Lego videos. Virtuoso, I endured 27 years of futility and short-lived triumph to see a Knicks team reach the NBA Finals.
That's right.
Their first appearance since 1999. So Keaton, do me a favor and play that Prince sound drop for this occasion.
Well, good timing, man. We were just at 2004 in the YouTube chat anyway. And we're at 839 likes.
Look, man, I think I don't like to take credit, you know, for things, but I think that calling out Wilt Chamberlain for getting too rich probably made him put in a little extra effort for the Knicks this season.
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably a lot of what changed. Barbara Howard.
Oop. Yeah, your camera froze. You might have to disconnect your camera. I'll take these while you're doing that.
All right.
Barbara Howard says, good luck with the Knicks. I'm a boomer who only associates with Gen Z and my millennial sons because boomers are so propagandized and boring. Well, thank you, Barbara. Appreciate that very much. And thank you for the well wishes for the New York Knicks. The Canadian here says, Steve, the Munk debates are held in Toronto, the liberal Zionist capital of Canada. Ontario's Premier Doug Ford has tried to criminalize Palestinian demonstrations in the city. Yeah, the Fords are still rocking it there. You can't shake those Fords. That's weird, huh? EO Shush.
It is very strange.
Yeah, your camera's not on. You're
yeah, hang on. All right, so that should do it.
There you go. Now you're back.
Yeah, that was weird. All right.
This country is in moral decline, says EO Shush, because of the internet. You go on X and half the country is talking about gay sex cruises and getting pegged by sex. Thank you. Kenman says, can't we get a Munk debate with Michael Tracy and Matt Taibbi? Yeah, there you go. We covered the first Munk debate we ever covered was Taibbi and
Taibbi and Murray versus Who were those repulsive?
It was
swine that they
Gladwell,
were?
and I forget who the other guy.
Yeah, who was the other one?
The other woman, whoever she was. I forget. It's always been pretty simple, says Vienticus. How can you say you're promoting the will of the people somewhere that you are changing by your own force? That's right. Exactly. Mark Pugliese, when I was 12, I realized you can't defeat totalitarianism without becoming totalitarian yourself. Interesting. Benjamin Stieber, Nuland should work for the FTC as in FTC. Ha. Good one. Good one. All right. We will do our final segment of the public stream. Then we'll take the remainder of our chats, and then we will head over to the Patreon post game. Not too late to sign up and become a member. Patreon.com/Do Dissidents is how you do it. All right. Excited to cover this story here. So Pope Leo made a couple of statements over the last couple days here. Pope Leo makes historic apology for Vatican's role in legitimizing slavery. Pope Leo the 14th made a historic apology on Monday for the Holy See's role in legitimizing slavery and for having failed to condemn it for centuries, calling the Vatican's record a wound in Christian memory. Past popes have apologized for Christians' involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, but no pope had ever publicly acknowledged, much less apologized for, the role that past popes played in giving European sovereigns explicit authority to subjugate and enslave infidels. It is impossible not to feel deep sorrow when contemplating the immense suffering and humiliation endured by so many, in stark contrast to their immeasurable dignity as persons infinitely loved by the Lord, Leo wrote. For this, in the name of the church, I sincerely ask for pardon. So, based, but what if I told you that that was actually the second most base thing that the Pope said over the past couple of days?
Crazy, man.
What if I told you that? Well, here he is talking about the new impending form of slavery that is upon us now, which is the AI data center slave state. Pope Leo XIV's address in English at the publication of his encyclical letter and Magnificat Humanitas on safeguarding the human person in the age of artificial intelligence. Do listen to all of it. It's very good. We're not going to listen to all of it, but we do have a few minutes of it, some highlights.
Intelligence already touches many areas of our lives and affects decisions that shape human coexistence. It is also dramatically changing how war is waged. Like the earlier Leo, I feel entrusted to look upon another huge transformation with eyes of faith, with lucidity of reason, with openness to mystery, and with cries of the poor and the earth resounding in my heart. Magnificat Humanitas was born from listening, like Leo XIII did. I've listened to scientists and engineers who work with sincere enthusiasm on technologies capable of alleviating immense suffering, to political leaders and public officials who have perseveringly sought just rules, to parents and teachers who are deeply concerned for the future of younger generations. Other very troubling voices have also reached me about increasingly autonomous weapons systems, practically beyond any human reach to govern them effectively. I hear very troubling accounts of algorithms that can block access to healthcare, employment, and security on the basis of data tainted by prejudice and injustice. And I've heard the silence of those who have no voice when decisions are made. Decisions likely to generate new forms of exclusion and suffering. From this listening matured a disturbing conviction expressed in Magnificat Humanitas. Artificial intelligence needs to be disarmed. The word is strong, I know, but deliberately chosen because this moment needs words capable of attracting attention, awakening consciences, and indicating paths forward for humanity. The Church has long been working for nuclear disarmament, aware that every great technical power can affect people's lives, and so must be accompanied by adequate moral discernment and public control.
See, I've said this in the past too. I've been on this beat for the past few months, that just like you have treaties governing the use of nuclear weapons, you need treaties governing the use of AI. You have to treat it like a nuclear weapon. You have to treat it as an emerging technology that has immense power over the human population.
Nuclear disarmament remains a service to peace and the dignity of the human family. In a similar sense, artificial intelligence now demands to be disarmed, freed from logics that turn it into an instrument of domination, exclusion, and death. Like nuclear energy, it must be at the service of all and of the common good. Decisions about technology must never be separated from conscience and responsibility. Let us not sleep as others do, admonished the Apostle Paul, but let us keep awake. Disarming, however, is not enough. We must build. Artificial intelligence can be a construction site of history from within a horizon of communion in which technical progress learns to serve human life.
See, this is where he's getting a little idealistic. He's like, yeah, we can have AI. The people who are creating it need to keep humanity in mind. Yeah, fat chance.
Each builder choose with care how to build, warned St. Paul. He does not fear the work site. Rather, he warns against building without solid foundations. Let's not fear artificial intelligence, but constantly keep the question of the human in play. We cannot be careless with our most powerful technical instruments. Only together, those who design systems and those affected by them, richer countries and poorer ones, institutions and individuals, power centers and peripheries, will we be able to build a future, not for a privileged few, but for the entire human family. This is the civilization of love, which St. Paul VI spoke and which St. John Paul II so forcefully proclaimed as a horizon to seek together. It's not a naive dream, it is a direction. It is the path that Jesus Christ opens within history. For this reason, the Church wishes with humility and frankness to be part of conversations on artificial intelligence. We do not possess the technical answers, nor do we seek to displace those with expertise. But we bring a wisdom concerning the human that our present time desperately needs. Every person is unique and irreplaceable, a free and intelligent subject with a conscience, capable of seeking God, serving one another, and caring for our common home.
See, so that is as pro-human and as pro-family a speech as you can give. And not only that, but he's offering his services. Hey, if any of the people who are chomping at the bit to build out this AI infrastructure want to consult with us about how to do so while not completely railroading humanity and causing humanity to basically disappear into an algorithm of zeros and ones, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. So let's see some of the response. So here's a positive response. Mark Joseph Williams, the hope in Leo's voice, the clarity of words truly evokes civilization of love. Autocratic leaders like the current occupant in the Oval in D.C. take heart. This man in the chair of St. Peter at this hour is a gift for all, now and generations to come. All humanity is magnificent, all. And AI, all its algorithms cannot replace mystery, the capacity to truly love one another in God. So yes, of course, he ties all of that to his religious conviction. So the Pope tweeted out some supplemental material because the encyclical was 42,000 words. So that speech, we just showed 4 minutes of it. It was about 12 minutes long, but the full statement is considerably larger than that. Humanity, created by God in all of its grandeur, is today facing a pivotal choice, either to construct a new Tower of Babel or to build the city in which God and humanity dwell together. In Jesus Christ, this humanity in its grandeur becomes the way, the truth, and the life, opening the path for each of us to grow toward fullness. He also quotes J.R.R. Tolkien. Yes, he retweets J.R.R. Tolkien.
Really?
A retweet, yeah. He tweets him
Really,
here.
he was a cracker.
In his first encyclical cautioning against the dangers of AI and technology, Pope Leo quotes Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. It is not our part to master all the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succor of those years wherein we are set, uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after may have clean earth to till. So
I'll grant you, it's those books are a little racist, but so's the Bible.
So is the Bible. That's right. So Chris Olah, co-founder of Anthropic. So these are the ones who I guess the White House shafted because they warned against abusing the surveillance capabilities of these technology systems. Said artificial intelligence development cannot be left solely to tech companies, calling for greater oversight from religious leaders, governments, and civil society. So here is the co-founder of Anthropic at the Vatican.
Our AI lab, including Anthropic, operates inside a set of incentives and constraints that can sometimes conflict with doing the right thing. The pressure to stay commercially viable and to stay at the frontier of research. Geopolitical pressure and the older, plainer pressures of pride and ambition. There is a real possibility that AI will displace human labor at a very large scale. If that happens, supporting those displaced will be a moral imperative of historic proportions. This task will be difficult enough, but I worry most dialogue misses an even harder challenge. AI development is concentrated in a handful of wealthy nations. How will we ensure that the gains of AI are shared globally? We do not have a mechanism for this. It is an unsolved problem. And it is the kind of problem the church has historically refused to let the world ignore.
Okay, so you have the Pope there warning about the dangers of AI, advising us to, keep our heads about ourselves and not let this swallow the human race. You have one of the AI pioneers here basically echoing that sentiment. And of course, we have the Christian values, pro-family party in the White House, unlike those godless liberals who were, WEF, New World Order types, right? So you'd think the administration would have a positive response to that. Don't forget, 1 in 5 Americans are Catholic. So, here you have the leader.
Is it 1 in 5? Is that many?
It's about 60 million Americans are not just Christian, but Catholic. And so let's see a response from the Trump administration. So here is Doug Burgum. Doug Burgum. He is the Interior Secretary, I believe. Here he is fielding this question from Fox News.
Leo, this weekend, issuing a major document Monday focused largely on the implications of the rise of artificial intelligence. The Pope saying that this technology could make civilization less human. Why is the Pope commenting about AI right now?
Why is the Pope commenting? See, we want Christianity restored in the public discourse, except when we don't, right? Except when this religious leader speaks out. Now, it's not what do you have to say about his comments. It's why did he dare comment? Why do you think he opened his big fat fucking mouth in the first place?
All we really need from a pope is for him to reinforce our fuck the poor message.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
If he doesn't want to do that, he can keep his mouth shut and give benedictions at the Super Bowl.
That's right.
Well, I didn't know that was I didn't know that tech editorializing was part of the role of being Pope, but it is but certainly some of these states that have got.
I thought you believe in like God and all that stupid bullshit that we actually don't believe in, but we trick our stupid voters into thinking that we give a shit about that.
Why would a moral leader comment on something that would have enormous impact on economics and labor?
Exactly.
That have got very high electricity prices today, and they've got high electricity prices today because of the policies they pursued with trying to go with intermittent, unreliable, weather-dependent sources of electricity.
Yes. That's right. No, that's right. So people's electric bills now are going up because of windmills and solar panels, not because of the AI centers that are drinking up all the water or sucking up all the power. No, just go to that flex. And this is Fox News. So these are the Ed Gallrein voters who watch this. The people who watch this and take it seriously are the people who voted for Ed Gallrein. So contrast that message from the Pope with this message from Sam Altman, which is a kid born today will never be smarter than AI.
Smarter than AI. A kid born today will never be smarter than AI. Ever. And a kid born today, by the time that kid kind of understands the way the world works, will just always be used to an incredibly fast rate of things improving and discovering new science. they will never know any other world. It will seem totally natural. It will seem unthinkable and Stone Age like that we used to use computers or phones or any kind of technology that was not way smarter than we were. We will think like how bad those people of
Okay, so who hates human beings? Who are the pro-human people here? Because, when you look at a lot of the framing around political issues, broadly speaking, not just as it pertains to this, this is as it pertains to the Epstein files as well. You have simple, honest, salt of the earth, God-fearing people who are very offended by elite pedo rings in high places. And then, you have the hedonistic, godless lizard people as represented by the World Economic Forum and the left of center liberal wing of the ruling class. You can't get more anti-human than this. You can't get more cynical than this. You can't get more bleak than this. To think, kids will never have as much to offer as robots. They're going to grow up not understanding why people used to think for themselves. That's just going to be completely foreign to them. Corinne tweets out, Sam Altman keeps comparing human children to AI. That tells you everything. If AI is merely a tool, then comparing a newborn child to it is the dehumanization of humans. Exactly. If AI is an intelligence capable of growth, continuity, and development, then discarding old models is not product iteration. It is execution. This is the trap OpenAI can never escape. When they want power, AI is superior to humans. When they want responsibility, AI is just software. Either way, someone is being dehumanized. Either the child becomes a benchmark or the model becomes disposable. Well said. Very well said. Simpler, more concise, but just as insightful, I think. Emotional intelligence is something sociopaths are clearly not aware of. Yes, exactly, as it pertains to Sam Altman. But here's their actual God, okay? So, they may pretend to be Christians. They may pretend to, bow at the altar of Jesus Christ. This is the altar at which they actually bow their head. This is their actual God here. His name is Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock. And here he is admitting trillions of dollars being used to build data centers and power grids will come from ordinary people's savings accounts and pension funds, and says it is mandatory. So let's take a look.
More and more Americans to think about growing with the United States. We will have far than enough money to invest in this infrastructure. But as the governor was talking about, the need for electrons is growing every day. Some of these, if we're going to be the leader in technology, which we are, if we are going to be the leader in AI, which we presently are, it's just going to require trillions of dollars of investments. And if we don't invest in it, China will be the global leader in this. And so to me, it's not whether, this is a must. And if you think about how that translates, it translates into a more dynamic economy. We need the United States economy to grow at over 2%. We need the U.S. economy to grow at 3%, especially with the growing deficits the federal government has. And so much of this money, not just the project, is going to be coming from the private sector, from savings accounts, from pension accounts, from insurance companies, and on and on and on.
Oh, so ours.
Our money. Yeah.
Is in need of improving the infrastructure.
Okay, so that's your God right there. That's God if you live here in the U.S. Okay, all this posturing about what men of faith they are and how we have to find God. You have to find Larry Fink. That's what they mean. That's who they actually bow to. That's who they actually revere. That's who they actually respect. That's who they actually model themselves after. Right? I mean, I'm joking, but I'm not. I mean, it's a real metaphor. It's an apt metaphor because this is who actually commands the ethos of the people who make big decisions in this country. Not Jesus Christ, not the Pope, right? Not even the AI pioneers with a conscience, like that Anthropic guy. They slammed the door on them. They call them woke and they kick them out. They cancel their contracts and everything. No, this is who these people actually answer to. It's who they model themselves after. And nowhere is that contrast more clear than in their response to the Pope making what I think is a really beautiful statement about the need to center humanity in all of these decisions. And Fox News, the conservative family values broadcasting network, laughs him off. Hey, why do you think he even opened his mouth in the first place? Oh, I didn't know Pope's comment on tech. Let's hear from Larry Fink, right? There you go. Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you were throwing up another clip.
No, that's it.
Yeah, you know what? You know what's funny, man? Larry Fink, for a lot of MAGA, was the symbol of ESG. They were going crazy when he wanted to make you hire black people. You know that they were going berserk about that. Now he just wants to steal your money to finance a technology that's going to throw you out of work. That's okay.
Right.
That's okay. They were very upset that he was, funding gay characters in Disney movies.
Right.
That drove him crazy. Now, this is fine. This is fine. No, really, like Larry Fink was one of the main villains in the pantheon of woke, right?
Right.
Now when he's talking about using your savings account to destroy not just your life, your world, not a peep. Not a peep.
Yep.
There's like all the, the whole, anti-woke industrial complex. They were all so upset about all of these franchises being destroyed by wokeness. None of them seem to have a problem with the biggest donor to the IDF taking over Paramount. All they care about is how it's going to affect Star Trek.
Right.
Are we going to get better? Genocide, schmenocide. What are they going to make a convincing Captain Kirk by prequel, right? Yeah, no. I mean, it's amazing how you don't hear a peep about Larry Fink now, right? Because he's in the club with these guys. And on the other side, Larry Fink, he stopped talking about ESG because none of them gave a shit about it. I mean, that was my critique of it, because I did cover that stuff. My critique was always, this is a smokescreen for their agenda. Like when the liberal class was in power and they were the ones they had to mollify, they promoted all of this ESG. Now that it's a different group in power, you don't hear a word about it. If the old guard comes back in power, it's going to come back. And they're going to be talking about equity and inclusion again. But in the end, they don't care. They don't care. I keep saying this. They're going to kill you, man. They're going to fucking kill you. When they decide they don't need that many people, I don't believe they're going to go to UBI, man. I mean, maybe some very minimal efforts at UBI. They're going to let people die. They're militarizing and securitizing the whole society in preparation for that day. When people realize what this is all leading towards, they're going to rise up. It's going to be too late. They're going to try to overthrow these people. They're going to be too militarized. They're going to be too securitized. You're not going to be able to organize out of sight of their surveillance, and they're just going to kill you.
I mean, it's already way too late. They were 10 steps ahead of everybody. They made everybody think that they were concerned about the illegals. The illegals. Right. We need to keep the illegals out because the illegals are taking our jobs. Jobs. That's cute, boomer.
Yeah.
Where we're going, we don't need jobs, right? And now they tell the Pope to shut the fuck up. Understand what they're saying about UBI. When I say there will be a UBI, because I do think there will be a UBI, the UBI is not going to be Andrew Yang's UBI. We send you a check for $1,000 a month and good luck. The UBI is going to be some sort of like digitized, dollar amounts that you can spend.
Well, that's another thing. You better not be making waves if you want that money.
Well, you got to spend at certain places for certain purposes. You can't say the wrong thing or they can turn your money off, right? It's going to be a tool of control. It's not just going to be here's some money, good luck, the way they did in COVID. The UBI is going to be another instrument of control, right? That's what I mean when I say there will be a UBI. I think they're going to ration out what you need to. This is what all of the one pillar of the Trump movement was the Epstein stuff. Another pillar of the Trump movement was this, that there's going to be 15-minute cities.
Yep.
They're going to have lockdowns, and they're going to control where we spend money. They're going to debank us and this and that. All of that is kicked into high gear now by the people you elected to stop it. That is what's happening. And BS, if the Pope doesn't like it, he can shut his fucking mouth, because who is Jesus Christ anyway?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So there you go. All right, folks.
Fucking
we're going to move. Jesus Christ was a Jew bastard. Exactly. Worked with his hands. Carpentry. Victoria Nuland equals cliche speech supporting war crimes. Thank you, Kuznetsky Bassane. Mark Pugliese. Hey, Keith, they can come and take us over for healthcare. I'm down with that. Thank you. Yes, indeed. You need the brain chip so Iran can't harm you. That's right. That's right. So, Mark Pugliese, you want to maybe trade with Canada? Maybe you can. Canada can take over your state, and then we can take some of Canada, right? They fight for our freedoms, but every time I feel like we have less and less freedoms. That's right. Ian Puttick. Hey, long time no see, Mr.
What's up, Ian?
Total.
When we
common
going out
sense.
for that jelly deal, man?
Yeah. Thanks, chaps. Greetings from London, Ian. Greetings, Ian. Thank you, Ian. Nocturnal Human says he should have responded in the debate. Nuland, are you not a retorted cave sloth? Yeah, he should have said that. That would have been good. Mearshimer own. Kuznetsky Busain, Poland and Romania joined NATO, then received U.S. missiles that could reach Moscow in 15 minutes. Yeah, no, but that's not an offensive organization. Not at all. Nong, nong, nong. It's been scientifically proven that Erica Kirk will look exactly like Victoria Nuland inside of 15 years. Stoop Sign says, I remember Russia with NATO. I was like 8 when I became anti-NATO. I had a 13-channel TV in my room. A lot of PBS. Bosnia seemed like a plucky underdog. I also remember the U.S. bombing. Ran out of characters, but I get the point, Stoop Sign. Vienticus says, just remember, before the internet, the idea that Richard Gere had unsavory relations with a gerbil spread like wildfire.
Yes, it did. It did.
Yep. Imagine being lectured on who a monster is by Nuland. She aged like a Sith, for Christ's sake. Huh? Good one.
Seriously.
Skyman says, born in 93, too late to enjoy the 80s, too early to be brain rotted, just in time to be aware of everything collapsing over and over again. Yep. Yeah, I feel you. Stoop Sign, I'm weird. I'm in my 30s, but barely used the internet till I was 27. No Facebook or Instagram. Internet notwithstanding, I think Gen Z has the best values. I agree. Generally.
I'm always defending them, man.
Yeah.
That's these vampiric boomers.
Snork, I'm 65. In the late 70s, we had DARPANet. Yeah, that's right. Young Gen X, intro to Tiny Monitor Max, sophomore year high school, English. Got it. Interesting. All right. Stoop Sign, they're going to have to bring back the Pope Mobile after Leo came out against tech slavery. That's right.
Yep.
Race Car, thanks for the super sticker. Appreciate that very much. Kate7478 says, will you invite on James Lee to discuss Massie and current events? Would enjoy hearing from you together. Yeah, we've had him on once before. I would love to have him on again. And I know he covered the Massie race quite closely.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
cool dude.
Sure. Cool dude. I vote for AI Robo Pope. Terminator Pope even better. Yeah, exactly. Vienticus Prime, speaking of books, will I win a bet involving Keaton? When did you bet on that? When did you bet? How much time do I have? Altman is right about no kids born today will be smarter than AI because AI will kill them before that happens. That's bleak. Yada's 5678. XBF was chief security for former government of Baja in Mexico. IDF was hired to train them. I was confused at the time. Understand is booming business for Israel. Thank you for that. Zandiva, movie night suggestion. Yeah, Rush Hour 2 with Nick Kid. Thank you. Turk Urdu, Oceania had always been at war with Eurasia. That's right. Skyman, I hate these tech bro billionaires. The way they frame technology is insane. It's called AI because the artificial comes first. Having a fancy search engine isn't intelligence. They're insane. Yes, indeed. I agree. Matt from Wisconsin, by the way, this was from the old stream that got deleted. Hey, Russ, if I'm lucky enough to win one of your show-worn shirts, could you please sleep in it and send it unwashed? Hope that's not too weird. Yeah.
I haven't had a minute to work it through with Keaton, but I'm really going to do that because, like, I have like 3 drawers full of T-shirts now.
Can you piss on it and send it to me?
Can you wipe your ass?
Can you jerk off into it and send it? Vienticus Prime, it's not that they have to find Larry Fink, it's they have to find Larry Fink's asshole so they can tongue bath it. That's right. Fink, Altman, Musk, Zuck, effing, dim. What? I don't know how do you say that word?
Demiurge.
Demiurge. Yeah, I don't know that word. MFers. Thank you. Vienticus Prime says all the data centers.
It's a being that thinks it's God, but it's deeply flawed and destroys everything.
Well, that makes sense then. See, I learned something today. Vienticus says all those data centers being built in farmland lets them all just bomb the cities to depopulate. Captain Spacehawk, anyone can be the best spunking trillions, for fuck's sake. That's right. Vienticus Prime, thanks for the $1 UBI. You believe Israel. Yeah, that's right. You believe. That's good. You believe Israel. Thanks for the 200, whatever that currency is. Ibidumar. Thanks for that. Appreciate that very much, my friend. Matt from Wisconsin. Do y'all not read chat? No, I just did it. The chat that you gave before us was on the stream that got deleted because we had a mishap starting that stream. We had a technical problem. But yeah, I just read that for you for that reason. So we got you. Thank you. Sorry about that. I hate when that happens, when a chat comes in and then we have to cancel the stream because the tech fucks up. Who makes the best knishes in New York City? What is it, Russ and Daughters?
That's God damn it. The place that's been there since 1915. Jonas Schimmels.
Jonas Schimmels, that's it. I get that confused with Russ and Daughters. Jonas Schimmels, yes, that's the one. That's on all the tours. Skyman, I thought of going off grid, but my AI assistant kept framing it as free range human. Should I be worried? Good one, my friend. Good one. All right, folks. So if you'd like to sign up, you can still get access to the post game, patreon.com/do dissidents. We're going to take a 5-minute break and then head over. The show continues for members. So if you are a member, you go over to that member only room. You got the link to it in the email this morning. 63 of you are over there now. Look forward to seeing the rest of you over there in 5 minutes. If you're a Rumble Premium member, stay right where you are. This stream is going to continue for members only in just a moment. Everybody else, we'll see you back here Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. I think movie night's going to be Thursday night too. So there will be movie night on Thursday. That'll be a double header. But we will be back live for everybody Thursday at noon. If you're a member, we'll see you in 5 minutes. Until we see you again, thanks very much to the YouTubers and the Rumblers and the mods for keeping the peace in the chat. We'll see our members in 5 minutes for the Cool Kids post-game show. Everyone else, we'll see you Thursday. Till whenever we see you again, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.